Imagine that. Imagine that. Imagine that. Life could change. Imagine that.
Hey, miss.
Hey, I'm Mr. Todd, Mr. Todd's Corner.
All right, so we're going to discuss something that we love a lot, which is basically hip hop. So before we actually get this started, I wanted to say there have been a lot on my mind when this topic first got brought up. So I really didn't know where to even go with this. So let's just start off like this. Uh, when was the first time that you ever listened to hip hop?
Now I'm gonna be telling my age. So, um, I lived in the Bronx when hip hop started.
Mm-hmm,
So, like for me,
mm-hmm,
um, honest truth is like, uh, I would have been at my grandma's house, and she lived on the third floor off of where were we, in Home Street, I think it was. Yeah, Home Street, and in the Bronx, and you had fire escapes. So the fire escape, it was just kind of like you see in the movies where it kind of goes a diagonal back down. It has the ladders in case there's a fire, and people like downtown LA in the old buildings, and they have it looks like a terrace, but it's called a fire escape. So me and my cousin used to sit out there. So you would hear the cars, with the music. And I remember the first time hearing, I want to say it was Planet Rock, but it was something. It was just like Planet Rock, Don't Stop, and it was just this robotic. Like now everybody's using auto tune, but it was way back. And and then from there, um, I would say even before that, like the actual organic part of it, it was always where people had their like pails, and they'd be sitting out on the stoop
mm-hmm.
outside your building, and they would be drumming or hitting it with the spoons, and somebody would be beatboxing, they would be breakdancing, and you'd hear somebody, and they used to call it snapping. Like we would be snapping on each other and be like, I wasn't involved, but the people like how today, like you battle. So you have like a loaded Lux or something like that, and they talk about your moms or whatever. They had those, but for the most part, it was like they talk about your gear. Um, but I didn't really know what that was. Like I didn't know. It just was like you're just hanging out, listening to people rhyme, you know. But it wasn't like a commercial thing. There was no such. There was nothing on the radio. There was nothing. So then, the Sugar Hill Gang was the one that made me go, "Oh, wow, this is different." And I was like super young, but I remember that. So I would say like 79.
Mm-hmm.
Long, long, long time ago. 78, 79.
Alright. Okay, so my story obviously is different. I think hip hop for me was probably the third genre that I got to, and that probably was in the middle of the '90s because I'm a '90s baby. But I think the first genres at first for me was, I want to say, oldies, then jazz, or something like that. It was those two, but it could have been flipped in reverse. And then I got the hip hop, and I just remember hearing Biggie and Tupac on the radio. I remember hearing that, and then I heard Jay-Z and Eminem. But when my brain actually started, understanding more, is when Nelly blew up, when Ludacris blew up, and
Yeah.
then I found my way back to Jay-Z. But I still wasn't appreciative of like what Jay Z did in his discography because that was right around when he retired. So like the middle of the '90s is when I started, and then I started listening more in the early 2000s. And then after Jay Z quote unquote retired, that's when
Back
I
out.
really started pick up everything. And by that time, I started listening to Jada Kiss, Lil Wayne, Fabulous, Lori Banks, 50 Cent, and then uh, Jay Z came back around, and I started listening to like more Nas and all that type of stuff. So yeah, my journey was a tad bit different. And then in terms of battle rap and all that stuff, it basically was the same thing as what you're saying. Obviously, it's way different now. I feel like it started changing when I became a teenager because as you were saying, the content was more about talking about gear or somebody's mom or whatever the case may be. I felt like during my teen years, it was more like a lot of just gun bars and like knife bars and all this stuff. And it was like, okay, like people are not really doing this, the people that are saying doing this, but
Yeah,
it's like the trend at the time.
yeah,
So yeah, and then now obviously with battle rap, they do super personals and they're doing bars like that's just like out of this realm, so to speak. So some of it does make sense, some of it doesn't make sense. And then you have your guys who uh they keep it down to earth, so to speak. Like they get to the substance, the elements of substance, as opposed to like the whole magical aspect of it. But yeah, that's basically my side of how I got into it. When was your first rap CD? Like the first one that you
that I
bought?
purchased.
Yes.
Okay, now let me do one more thing. When
Okay.
uh you said you used to listen to other stuff first. Well, I
Yeah.
never before hip hop or rap, whatever, at the time, because it was none of that, right? I was
Hmm.
like my family, the radio, and then just what they would listen to, because I still have records, like vinyl from back then.
Hmm.
And um it was like Motown, um, it was a lot of that. It was a lot of like jazz. I would hear a lot of calypso because that's my heritage, right? So like West Indian. So my grandma, like heavy West Indian, so they'd be playing, you know, uh, merengue, calypso, whatever. So I never heard of hip hop at that time. It was just soul music. It was um, so yeah, I definitely had like for me that was like a whoa, because I went from Jimmy Mack and the Jacksons, like that was my, like Michael Jackson is still probably like my top, my number one, but the Jackson 5, like all that stuff, you know, funk music, um, but that would have been before hip hop. And
Hmm.
then once hip hop came, I still wasn't like sold on it. I was more like, I liked Run DMC, but I was more like, I still went back to pop, whatever you call it, R&B kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So my first CD, uh,
Hmm.
let me think. It's probably still here. I have a whole bunch of CDs up there. I have boxes. Let me think. That's a good question. My first CD would have been, okay, does Belle Biv DeVoe count? Because that's R&B, but it was kind of,
As rap.
no, just like a hip
I
hop.
mean, you can still. I mean, if you want to, if you feel that's if you feel like that's part of that genre, uh,
Well, because they
yeah,
were
I
always like
mean
hip
that's
hop, but
fine.
yeah, Bobby Brown was R&B, right? But then you had like, hmm,
Yeah, they
like
basically set the footsteps right for like R&B fused with hip hop
yeah. So like
or no?
that's when I got to
Okay.
me. So that's when I got involved. But I bought like Rex and
Hmm.
Effect. I want to say Rex and Effect because this was on. You're saying CD. I had cassettes. See,
Yeah,
I had
I
cassettes.
mean
Like,
you can start there too. I mean you can go.
oh, okay. So if I go like way back, like cassettes, my first one probably Eric Sermon.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
EPMD. I think I bought
Hmm.
was probably one of my first, because it wasn't like Like you know how you have like NWA. That wasn't. I'm way before that. I had a Run DMC album, but I didn't buy it back then. I bought it
Mm-hmm.
like later. Like
Mm-hmm.
when I bought hip hop or rap wasn't
Mm-hmm.
when it started. I bought it like way after the fact. So like when I started like you,
Yeah.
like I started appreciating it and going, man, I really like this guy. Like so for example, like this is what I meant by Bill Biv DeVoe. I would hear like a Heavy D, but I heard Heavy D
Mm-hmm.
because he was on like a Guy album. And then Guy was
Yeah.
like that was like my group, right? And and
Mm-hmm.
um and then from there I would learn Heavy D. Or if I was listening to Michael Jackson, I would hear Heavy D. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? That's how I actually got to where I wanted to buy it because when I started liking it, it was more fused, R&B and hip
Mm-hmm.
hop. That's the part of it I liked. And then you had like the conscious, you know, type of stuff. So yeah, I would probably say like, hmm, on a cassette, I want to say like an Eric Sermon. Well, it would have had to been EPMD before Eric Sermon, which would mean I listened to this would have been like 86. I want to say like an 86. That's when I Red Man.
Mm-hmm.
That was definitely a cassette I bought.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
mark my words. I'm gonna work with them. I'm
Mm-hmm.
determined.
It'll happen. Definitely got to put in the universe
Yeah, I've
for
been
sure.
believe me, I've been trying to figure this thing out for 2 straight years, but it'll get there.
Mm-hmm.
So what was your first one you bought?
Okay, so I was gonna say the first one that was given to me was Nellyville. My mom, she had bought Nellyville for me, so this was about 2002. But the first time I was able to purchase a rap album I was 14. So this was 2004. I bought Lloyd Banks, "Hunger for More."
Mm.
I love that album to this day. I can play it straight, front to back, no skips. I love that album. I remember walking to buy that album in Marina Del Rey. So it's a vivid thing for me. I think this is the first time I was able to actually buy something that was explicit as well.
Mm.
So yeah, I remember watching his music videos. I'm like, man, this dude is so dope. I want to get his album. So I finally got it. Like I said, I had Nellyville on that before, but those were the clean versions and all that. So
Yeah.
this like my first, not only my first purchase, but my first explicit rap album that I bought, as opposed to downloading it off of LimeWire. Shout out to everybody who used to use
Oh yeah,
LimeWire.
and Napster. Remember
Yeah,
Napster? Yeah,
mhm.
way back.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the first album I got. Um, I can't even remember what's the next album after that. But I really have a collection. Like it's the most random thing. Like in terms of my discography of stuff that I bought, it's the most random stuff. Like I have Lori Banks, obviously, 50, Nelly, a bunch. The majority of albums from one artist is from Jay Z. I got Jada Kiss. Believe it or not, as funny as it sounds, I did buy a Mike Jones album. This is when Swisher House was popular,
Yeah,
and this when
Chameleon Air.
pop. So yeah, right around that time. I bought his album. I got Exhibit's album. Uh, yeah, I got like random stuff. I still got your High Tech album that you got me. Um, yeah, I still have that stuff. So yeah, that my collection is like all over the place.
Yeah, same here.
But also during this time, was when the mixtape era came. Um, so yeah, how about we transcend over into that topic next?
Cataclysmic soul shift of the righteous. I might just catch a train out at night just to see what's happening. Skid row seems everlasting, it's saddening. Just give a hammer, man, it's maddening. Leftovers handed over is a start. Use your heart, listen to the words of God. fellow man, maybe now you'll understand. Do your part.